I filmed him crying after finding my affair. He was furious after finding out. Hi, I'm Ava. My husband, let's call him Finn, and I met 7 years ago. He proposed just a few months in, said he knew I was the one the moment we met and didn't want to waste time or risk losing me. I was head over heels, completely swept up, and of course I said yes. We've been married for 5 years now, but if I'm being honest, there was a point where I stopped seeing him as my husband. His random emotional outbursts, the way he handled things, and his dead-end job made me feel disconnected, almost resentful, like I was stuck. I'll start by saying Finn had a terrible job because that's what led to the first crack in our marriage. He was an Uber driver and I hated that. And this is not because he wasn't trying, but because I was ashamed of him. That job is so embarrassing, though I never said it out loud, but sincerely, I didn't want people to know. I didn't also want to be the woman whose husband drove strangers around for a living while everyone else's partner had something respectable. I don't think anyone would want that. The thing is, when I met Finn, he had a solid job as a project manager at a mid-sized company, making decent money. But when the company hit hard times, he was laid off. That happened during the first year of our marriage. I knew it wasn't his fault. This wasn't how either of us expected our lives to turn out. But life has other plans. Still, I needed Finn to do better. As a man, I expected him to rise to the moment. Driving just wasn't good enough for me. And honestly, it was never going to be. To make things worse, one night he picked up one of my coworkers from a bar. She was drunk, rambling, and completely out of it. When he got home, he mentioned he'd picked up a girl who worked at my office. He laughed about how talkative she was. I remember my stomach twisting. All I could think was, what if she remembers him? What if she finds out he's my husband? He told me her name, and I knew her immediately. She was a wild, loud, and messy one. The type who'd remember everything and tell everyone. I felt myself tense up. My guard shot straight up. Then I asked him, "Did you tell her your name? Did you say anything about me?" He looked at me, confused, and said no. Then he told me to calm down. But I couldn't. I didn't. I was super paranoid. All I could think was, what if she connected the dots? What if word got out at work that my husband was just an Uber driver? I didn't care how much he made. I didn't care that he paid the bills or made sure we never lacked. In my eyes, it still wasn't enough. The job just wasn't up to par. He was the man, my man. And in my head, that meant he should have been doing more than just whatever is necessary, even if that whatever was holding our whole world together. I didn't even realize how unreasonable I was when I told him to never pick up any of my coworkers again. I mean, I didn't care how he figured it out, but he needed to make sure it never happened. I hated that feeling. The thing is, I'd already told him, a while back, to decline every ride coming from or going to my workplace, and he had no problem doing it. He did it because he wanted to respect me, because he wanted me to be okay. Finn had always made me his priority, before, and even now. My well-being, my comfort, my feelings, my peace. He put those things above everything else and always. And then, that was what I wanted, for him to never drive any of my coworker. There was no way in the world I was going to be stripped bare for everyone to see. Not like that. I couldn't handle the idea of anyone knowing what my husband did for a living, especially not in front of people who'd never let me forget it. And listen, when your husband is doing a shitty job like mine, you really don't want otherwise. You just don't. The day he came to my workplace after work, I felt my stomach drop. I saw him standing there by his car, waiting for me, and something in me snapped. I didn't even hesitate. I stormed straight to him. My face was all tight. I was so angry and already burning. Like I mentioned earlier, I'd told him before, more than once, that I didn't want him anywhere near my job. No pickups, no drop-offs. Was that so hard for him to understand? This wasn't even about him, not really. It was about how it made me feel small and exposed. How it made me be seen in a way I didn't want to be. He said he was just there to pick me up, like it was nothing. Like everything I had ever said to him meant nothing. And maybe to him, it wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was everything. I had already asked him not to do this. I didn't want my coworkers stepping out of the building and seeing him there. I didn't want questions. I didn't want looks. I didn't want to be that woman whose husband drove for a living while everyone else talked about bonuses and relocations and new mortgages. I just wanted him to understand, the way he always did. I don't even know what made him think things would be perceived differently when I never asked for it. We got in the car and I told him to just drive quickly before anyone saw us. I don't even remember if I said thank you. I was already boiling in anger. I know he was trying to care for me, but this is not the care I wanted from him. When we got home, I broke down in tears. I was being seen by someone from work, and I hated that we were even in that position. I truly hated it. And not just the fear, but the fact that this was our reality now. He asked me why I was crying, said he didn't understand what he'd done wrong, and that he was ready to fix it, whatever it was. That's Finn for you, always caring, always loving, never raising his voice, never snapping back. And somehow, that made it harder. I couldn't even say half of what I wanted to. I couldn't tear into him the way I'd planned during that silent ride home. I felt bad for him. I pitied him. But he still needed to do better. So I just told him I wanted to lie down, and that today could never happen again. It just couldn't. The next day at work, before anyone even asked, I casually mentioned that the Uber I took home the day before had been hectic. I just slipped it in like it was nothing, so one would dare suspect it was my husband behind the wheel. A few of my coworkers laughed and started talking about how hot the driver was. One of them even said he looked like someone off a show, and the others agreed, nodding and giggling like schoolgirls. I told them they were all delusional. I completely talked him down, and the thing is, I wasn't pretending. I didn't see him that way, not anymore. I wasn't even attracted to him in the way I used to be. It sounds cruel, I know, but I was just being honest because I knew something in me had already shifted. And it was like I'd slowly been closing the door, 1 inch at a time, and I hadn't noticed how far it had already shut. But that conversation helped me realize that, why I became more emotionally distant to Finn because I ended up fancying my boss's son. He was everything Finn wasn't in that moment. Rich, charismatic, and there was just something about his status that set my blood on fire. I mean, it wasn't just the money or the power. It was the way he carried himself, like he belonged in a different world, a world I've always wanted, so I gave in. I was the one who gave him the grand tour when he first started working with us. It was just supposed to be casual, Show him around, help him settle in. But then he looked at me like I was the only person in the room, and out of nowhere he asked if I was single. Without even thinking, I said yes, because a part of me wanted to believe it. He came close after that, real close, and told me I was the hottest thing he'd ever seen. Like, seriously? I was second only to the sun. That kind of talk messes with you. So my blood boiled with excitement, and it made my heart race and my mind forget everything else. It didn't take long before we started hooking up secretly, away from the eyes of everyone, and that's why I tried so hard to hide Finn, to hide the fact that I was married. Note, this is not just because I didn't want anyone to know, but because I was ashamed. Ashamed of what his job had become. Ashamed of how far we'd fallen from what we promised each other. The women in my office talked about their husbands like trophies. Engineers, doctors, tech bros with remote jobs and fat bonuses. I'd nod politely when someone said her husband got relocated to Dubai. Meanwhile, Finn was waking up at 4 a.m. to drive people to the airport. So how was I supposed to be proud of that? I was torn between loyalty and desire, between guilt and the hunger for something I thought I deserved. I know it was messy and wrong, but it was real, and damn, did it hurt. One weekend my husband came home early. He was supposed to be out with his dad at the cinema, but I guess plans changed. I was in the kitchen, just doing my thing. Normally I'd be out hanging with my boss's son if he was around, but he was out of the country that day. Then I heard the door open, and I just knew it was too soon for him to be back. I called out, but there was no answer, so I went to check. And there he was, standing there, tears streaming down his face and blood all over his clothes. It hit me like a slap. Before I could even say anything, he dropped to his knees and started crying like a scared kid who'd been punished. It was disgusting. I mean, come on. A grown man falling apart like that? Crying so hard it felt like he was trying to make up for every weakness he ever had. Turns out he'd been in an accident while driving. His dad got hurt real bad, and he held him until the ambulance came. But before they even got to the hospital, his dad died. Yeah, it's tragic. I get it. But still, he was supposed to man up, figure things out. Instead, he was on his knees, crying like some weak girl. Heaven knows I wanted to comfort him. I really did. I tried. I did my best. But seeing him like that, so broken, it irritated me. There's nothing sexy about a man crying like that. It just looked like cowardice. I've never been the best person when it comes to comforting people, especially not when there are tears involved. I always feel helpless, like I don't know what to say or do. I'm more like, suck it up, you're doing too much. And that's exactly how I felt in that moment, angry and uncomfortable. Yes, what happened was brutal. No one's denying that. But no amount of crying was going to bring his dad back. It happened. It's done. What's left is to get up and move on, not sulk like a child. I know it sounds harsh, but honestly, I find it absurd when a man cries. It annoys me. I've always believed men shouldn't show their emotions, not even to their wives. So when he broke down like that, I couldn't see him the same. It was a complete turn-off for me. Oh my God, don't get me started on the burial. It was worse. He was crying, and it was super embarrassing. I couldn't even face people with him acting like that. At one point, I was literally mad and scolded him to get his act together. His father's death actually did mess with him, and at the time, it made me detest him even more. Anytime he tried to tell me how he was feeling, I just brushed it off. I'd tell him he's a man. Men don't get stuck in feelings. He'll get over it. I know that sounds cold, but that's just how I see it. Like I said, emotions aren't something a man should show. Not to his wife. Not ever. Anyway, he always had a talent for writing. I guess since he totaled his car and had nothing else to do, coupled with the grief, he got inspired to write a novel. He mostly spent time at the public library, burying himself in it, and somehow finished the whole thing really fast. But to be sincere, I didn't even know what he was doing or care much, as long as he was still able to take care of us. It wasn't until he gave his friend Nick a copy to read that I realized something was happening. I think he didn't bother to give me a copy because he knew I wouldn't have the time to check it out, so he just did whatever he could on his own. Nick came to our house one weekend, and he just wouldn't shut up about the book. He kept rambling on about how it was the greatest thing he'd ever read. I looked at Finn and thought, maybe this writing thing was actually working for him. Maybe it was helping him hold himself together, or maybe it was just a distraction. Either way, it was something, and I was relieved. It was better than seeing him behind the wheel or weeping like an abandoned baby. Anyway, when Nick came by, I was just about to leave. I told Finn I was heading to the spa, but the truth was, I was going to meet my boss's son. I didn't want anyone to know what I was really up to. But then, I overheard Nick talking to Finn. He said he had shown the book to a publisher, and the woman absolutely loved it. She wanted to publish it. I caught every word, especially the part about the whooping sum of money they were ready to pay. That's when I stopped dead in my tracks. Suddenly, all the things I'd been ignoring hit me at once. The writing, the car accident, the tears, it all felt different now. It was like maybe Finn was actually onto something, and this was his chance to prove he wasn't just the guy behind the wheel, or the broken, pathetic man I kept seeing. I didn't say anything then. I just stood there, feeling this strange mix of hope and fear twisting in my chest. Because if this worked out, if he really made it, what would that mean for us? And more importantly, what did it mean for me? Anyway, the book got published, and it actually did well. My husband even got an advance on the next one. He started writing like a bullet train nonstop. I knew because he stopped going to the public library and was writing from home instead, so that meant he was home more, which honestly just made everything worse for me. I couldn't sneak around like I used to, no space for my little escapes. One day, he was deep into his writing, and I was just trying to distract myself. I was watching a video on my phone, had my AirPods in so no one could hear, thinking I was being slick. But then, I didn't even realize he'd come into the room and was standing there watching me. He laughed first, this sharp, teasing laugh, and said, "When did you start watching porn?" That's when I realized he was actually there, and just watching me. It was creepy to a point. I panicked and immediately covered my phone. I asked him why he didn't knock. He looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Why would I knock in my own house? It's just me and you here." That moment slammed me harder than I expected. Like I was embarrassed, but also mad. Mad that I didn't have privacy in my own home, mad that I had to explain myself for something that was mine alone, and seeing him there, unbothered, just casually invading my space, it made me feel trapped in ways I hadn't admitted before. It wasn't just about the video. It was mostly about him being home all the time, watching me, reminding me that I had no space to breathe or be myself. And honestly, it made me want to run away even more. I didn't even know what to say. All I knew was I wanted to scream at him to get out. Like, just go. But before I could even move, he grabbed the phone from me. His hands were shaking when he looked at the screen. And then he saw it. The video of me and my boss's son hooking up. We were literally naked. I mean, this wasn't some random video. This was one of those intimate moments we actually recorded, to relive whenever we couldn't be together. I saw Finn's lips trembling like he was trying to hold back a storm inside him. He didn't say a word at first. It was like the truth hit him so hard he didn't know what to do. Then finally he said it, just blunt like a slap in the face. "You're cheating on me." I don't know what he thought saying the obvious would do. Like, was he hoping it would hurt me? Or make me confess? But all I felt was trapped, like I was stuck in a room with no doors. Then he threw the phone on the bed and said I was unbelievable, and definitely not in a sweet way, but like I was some kind of monster. Then he raised his head, stared at the ceiling for what felt like forever. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were full of tears. He was crying, but he didn't say anything after that. He just turned around and walked away. I grabbed my phone like I wanted to chase after him, to fix it, to say something, but I stopped. I just stood there paralyzed, because deep down, I didn't know if I wanted to run to him or away from him. This man was crying like a sissy. What kind of man does that? I went to him in the living room and I saw him sitting on a couch bawling his eyes out, and for some reason, I took my phone and began recording him as he cried and sobbed. I wanted to mock him, make him feel just how weak and pathetic he looked. I mean, honestly, I expected some kind of explosion. Him losing his mind, throwing things, yelling, doing something fierce when he found out I was cheating. But all he did was cry. Just sit there and cry like that. It was almost ridiculous. I was quiet, chortling to myself as I kept recording. Then through the screen of my phone, I saw him looking right at me, like he knew exactly what I was doing. I looked up straight at him, and suddenly he sprang off the chair like a wild animal. He shouted at me, called me a cheap whore and a fool. The words cut sharp, no doubt, but if I'm being honest, at that moment I barely cared, because underneath all that anger and all those insults, I saw something else. Pain, confusion, something broken. But I wasn't ready to feel sorry for him yet. Definitely not after everything. Before I could even blink, he snatched the phone right out of my hand. His eyes were wild, not just angry, but humiliated. "How dare you?" he said, staring straight through me like he was a zombie. He kept asking if I thought I could really make a fool out of him. And the way he said it, the way his voice cracked under the rage, it scared me. That was the first time Finn actually scared me. I started staggering back, step by step, as if my body knew I couldn't fight what was coming. He held up the phone and asked what I was planning to do with the video. I didn't even have the voice to answer. I just stood there, rooted to the spot. That's when he told me in a clear, calm, and terrifying manner. He said if I wanted to embarrass him, then he would embarrass me first. I was shocked to the bone that those words actually came out of his mouth. It was almost unbelievable. You know, when you have this weak profile of someone, like you've already written someone off as weak and spineless, and then he shocks you and says something entirely out of character. And trust me, he wasn't joking when he said those words, because he did exactly that. He opened my phone and posted the sex video of me and my boss's son on every single social media platform I had. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even WhatsApp. He didn't even leave out my family group chat and my work group chat. Everything was uploaded clearly for everyone to see. And the process was painfully brutal for me, because he told me exactly what he was doing, each step as he did it. His voice was flat and too calm, which made it even scarier. And I was just standing there, watching my whole life detonate in real time. I couldn't even fight back or argue. His action and reaction muted me. My voice was literally gone. That's how dumbfounded I was. Then he wiped the phone right in front of me. No app left. He made sure there was no way for me to take anything down immediately. I just stood there like a ghost, watching him, watching myself burn. After that, he threw my phone out of the house, like actually flung it into the flower bed outside. I didn't even think. I ran straight out to grab it, with my heart in my throat, praying it wasn't broken. and the moment I bent down to pick it up, I heard the door slam behind me. He locked me out. It felt unreal. I was standing outside in nothing but a house shirt and slippers, clutching my phone like it was the last piece of control I had left. Thankfully, the phone didn't break, not even a scratch. But honestly, it didn't matter. It was already too late. The damage had been done. Calls started flooding in, no break, no breath. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was calls from my family, coworkers, and friends, and some from numbers I didn't even save. Everyone had seen it. My shame was now on full display. I started pacing, panicking, scrolling, trying to breathe. I couldn't even open the apps I had just reinstalled. It was just chaos. Notifications were pouring in like a tsunami. I couldn't stop it, couldn't delete fast enough, couldn't hide, and I just lost it. Right there, on the porch, I screamed. From deep inside my chest, that kind of scream that doesn't even sound human. Then I smashed the phone on the ground myself, shattered it totally. I didn't smash the phone hoping it would solve the problem. I just needed to release all the rage and helplessness building inside me. I just needed to destroy something before I lost my mind completely. I was the one falling apart, and I needed something else to take the hit. That didn't even help one bit. The secret affair with my boss's son got out, and by now, everyone at my workplace probably knows. What was that supposed to get me? What and where exactly? Public shame? A ruined life? At that point, I was anger. A walking, breathing, shaking anger. A better way to put it would be anger in the form of a human. That's the right word. That's exactly what I was in that moment. How could Finn be this heartless and cruel? I needed a man, not a monster. And he did this to his wife without even batting an eye. I banged on the door over and over, but he didn't respond. He said nothing to me no matter how hard I kept knocking. I was reduced to nothing but tears. I cried my heart out. I'm not even exaggerating. I cried until it felt like my tears had dried up completely. That's how helpless and hopeless I felt. I couldn't go anywhere dressed like that. I had no money, no ride, nothing. And this man, who called himself my husband, had locked me out and wouldn't let me in. What was I supposed to do in that moment? After battling his silence for hours, I got weak and just sat down on the floor. I kept hoping he'd calm down and let me in eventually, and that maybe after all the anger, he'd still see me, still care enough to open the damn door. But to my surprise, he didn't. I must have drifted off, because I woke up the next morning right there on the floor, stiff, cold, and sore. And Finn? He was gone. He left the house and walked right past me. He didn't even bother to check if I was alive, let alone wake me up or ask how I was doing. I was utterly shocked. He really left me lying there like I was a ghost. He couldn't see and didn't exist to him. What could a helpless woman in need do at that point? Nothing, literally. It was so painful and frustrating. So I was just there in disbelief, realizing my husband has now turned into a devil I couldn't recognize. That's how low it got. I ended up outside, looking like I'd been dragged through life backwards, with puffy eyes and mascara dried on my cheeks. I didn't even have the strength to cry anymore. I walked to the nearest gas station barefoot, looking like a damn ghost. I begged, like actually begged. The woman behind the counter looked at me like I was crazy, but some man in line took pity and gave me a few bills. Just enough to scrape together a prepaid phone, one of those ugly little off-brand ones in plastic packaging. That's what Finn reduced me to, a beggar on the street. I used to walk through glass doors in heels. Now I was hunched over in public Wi-Fi trying to find my voice on Reddit because I don't even have one in real life anymore. Update. So this is what rock bottom looks like. I actually chuckled to myself, realizing that my life right now is the literal definition of that. At this point, I don't even know if I still have a husband. What I do know is that I definitely have no job, no dignity, and just this pathetic little corner of the internet. And it's not like this space is safe either. I came here hoping to scream without being judged, but nope, it's full of shitty people too. Calling me all kinds of names, but I guess you'd never really know unless you walked in my shoes. Anyways, let's pick up where I stopped. I came back home, and luckily for me, I caught Finn right as he was walking in. I waited outside for hours like some desperate stray dog, and when I saw him pull into the driveway, I slipped in right behind him before he could shut me out again. He didn't even look bothered. Honestly, it didn't even seem like he was still planning to keep me locked out. He just looked tired and detached, like he didn't care either way anymore. I was starving. I went straight to the kitchen, but there was nothing. Not in the cabinets, not in the fridge. It was like he'd cleared out the entire place, and it was too late to go anywhere. Not like I had the strength anyway. So I showered, came back out, and sat on the couch, with my stomach growling like a damn wolf. And what did Finn do? He just sat there, right in front of me, eating takeout like it's a 5-star meal. Making those low sounds, licking his fingers, scrolling through his phone and chuckling at whatever nonsense he was watching. Not once did he offer me anything, not a bite, not even a glance. I was fuming. I got up and went to the bedroom because if he was going to act like I didn't exist, I was going to act like he didn't either. But I couldn't sleep. And not from hunger, though, that was real too, but from the ache. The ache of being so unwanted in your own home that you cry into a pillow just to keep quiet. I cried and cried. Finn slept in the guest room, as if I wasn't even worth sharing space with. He made it clear that he needed distance from me so bad, he couldn't even stand the same air. That night I died a little, from heartache, from hunger, from knowing I did this, and still he was the one punishing me better than I ever could. The next morning, I hurried out of the house before the sun was even properly up. I could barely stand straight. I was that weak from hunger. My legs felt like rubber. I hadn't eaten properly in almost 2 days, and I swear I almost passed out in the shower before leaving. I threw on some clothes that looked decent enough for work, because the plan was simple. Grab food, then head straight to the office like nothing ever happened. I still didn't say a word to Finn. And surprise, he didn't say anything to me either. He just watched me walk past like I didn't even exist, and it boiled my blood. Because for someone who had gone so far to the point of publicly humiliating me, ruining my job, wiping out any dignity I had left, he didn't even look the slightest bit remorseful. He felt no shame or guilt. Yes, I felt regret. Of course I did, but I needed his apology. He was the one who crossed the line. There's no taking back what he did. He went too far, plain and simple. And all because of what? He was too pathetic to act like a real man? Too soft to hold himself together? The way he reacted, you'd think he was the only victim. He is forgetting that all of this started because he couldn't act like a damn man, but yet he left me to suffer like I'm the only one who drove myself outside to sleep with another man. After eating at the restaurant, I sat there nursing my tea, unsure of what to do next. I was dressed for work, but I wasn't sure I could actually show my face there. I hadn't even replaced my phone yet. I could have done that before heading in, but deep down, I knew I didn't want to face the damage. I didn't want to see what had become of me. I already knew I was shredded into pieces. I didn't need a phone screen full of notifications to confirm that. Still, I told myself, scandals happen every day. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last. People cheat, people lie, people get exposed. It's ugly, yes, but it happens. So why should I care what people think of me? People who don't even know me. People who are probably doing worse than I ever did but just haven't been caught. That was the mindset I forced into my head. That's what I clung to as I left the restaurant and started walking toward work. Because at that point, faking confidence was all I had left. When I got to work, I already knew something was off. There was a new rumor circulating already. That was when I realized the scandal had grown its own legs and started sprinting. The rumor was that I'd been kicked out of my house after sleeping with my boss's son, and worse, that I was the one who had shared the tape myself. They made it look like I just woke up one day and decided to destroy my own life for fun. Apparently, someone had seen me the night I was locked out, disheveled, outside like a stray, and instead of helping, they ran with their own assumptions and threw gasoline on the fire. So much for people with dignity. My co-workers, people I sat with every single day, turned on me so fast it was almost comical. Even the ones who used to claim they were my friends. They said I had pretended not to be married, that I'd lied to all of them, made them look like fools. And maybe I had. I won't even argue that. But the way they punished me with their words was without mercy. I'm not going to lie. There I acted like it didn't touch me or affect me in any way, but I was wounded. Every whisper, every eye roll, every snide comment felt like a blade slicing through my skin. I was bleeding invisibly all day. The worst part is that my boss's son, the very person I had risked everything for, turned around and said that I drugged him and seduced him. He threw me completely under the bus, and of course everyone believed him. He had the name, the influence, and the privilege. Me, on the other hand, had nothing. I was just a lowlife and a liar, the cheater, the woman who hid her marriage and wrecked her own career. And no one expected him to sink that low over a woman like me. So clearly, it was his words against me. It didn't take long before I was called in. They said I was a disruption, that I'd caused damage to the company's image, and I was dismissed. They didn't even give second chances or room to explain. I packed my things in silence, with my head held high but heart in pieces. My so-called secret weapon had turned into the knife in my back, and all I could think was, this is the bed I made. Now I'm lying in it. After that, I was heading home to face another beast. But when I got home, my eyes almost left their sockets. I couldn't believe what met me. My belongings were outside, thrown out in a scattered and disorganized manner, with divorce papers. What a man you are, Finn. He actually locked the door and went out. I felt so sorry for myself. How does he expect me to start a new life now? Has he not punished me enough? I didn't even know what to do. I am rejected everywhere, and I wasn't sure that wouldn't be the same with my family. This platform was my last bus stop, and now it's just overwhelming because I am so done for. And I'm not sure what I'll do next, but I know that this will probably be my last update. I can no longer let my wounds stay open for anyone to stab right through them. Goodbye, and thanks for reading.